Hey everybody, welcome to episode 2 of The Grit. Back here for week number 2. We want to thank y'all for tuning in. Hope y'all enjoyed last week's episode, but if you missed it, we talked about Black Panther. We gave formal introductions here to the panel, so y'all can click on the link in the bio below to get a recap. Get a recap of episode 1. But how was everybody's week this week? Did y'all have a good week? Veronica, what did you do?
Well, I just chilled mostly, and I just did my research on The Grit, of course. Just did some work and chill with my daughter. Just a chill weekend.
That's what's up. That's what's up. And what about you? How did you spend your week?
Work. Just working. But I enjoy everything that I do, so it wasn't too hard of work. But working.
That's
Nothing wrong with that.
Tristan, how did your week go, man? What did you do? What was the highlight of your week?
Oh, well, the highlight of my week, besides going to the Pistons game Friday, we lost.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. That sucks.
I got a chance to go to Enjoy Detroit for their Black Market Saturday, which was pretty awesome because they had a bunch of different black businesses under one roof, no competition with each other, just everybody just being able to support one another within the community. It was really beautiful. So everybody just got a chance to just support black businesses and make contacts and network and everything. It was a beautiful event.
That's dope, man.
Yeah,
That's dope.
It is dope.
That sounds cool. About how many businesses were there?
It was like 5 or 6 businesses there.
That's dope. That's dope.
Yeah.
And also, by the way, you can actually check out some of the businesses on the Instagram page _The Grit, and then they actually have like some of the pictures that you can actually click on, some of the pictures and the tags, and you can actually see the businesses that were there, or some of them at least.
Excellent, man. Excellent. So.
I'm sorry. I know that you did some poetry, and I want to tell you it was beautiful. I love your work. Definitely.
Try to do my thing.
That's what's up.
I think that topic really provides a good segue into what we're going to be talking about today, in terms of gentrification. That's a key topic that's a matter of subject across a lot of major metropolitan areas across the entire country, and we're seeing it a lot here in our own backyard in the city of Detroit, where we're getting a lot of big investors coming down to the city, and really just what we feel like gentrification is kind of like the displacement of the native people from a certain area, and they're usually being priced out of their areas due to these investors buying up a lot of properties, and and it's usually happening in historically urban districts, right? Like the city of Detroit.
Especially in Detroit.
Yeah, so we see it a lot. We see it happen a lot all over the entire country, but we're able to relate because we're seeing it firsthand in the city of Detroit that we love.
Yeah, and it's not something that's not just too new to Detroit. Well, new now, but speaking about gentrification, but one of the mass gentrifications that happened in Detroit was in the 1960s, area called Black Bottom and Paradise Valley, which now everybody knows is 375 stretch in Lafayette Park. So the mass gentrification of Black Bottom started in the early 1960s, but in 1950s, there was a migration of African Americans that came into this area, and that was one of the city's major black community. So you had black businesses, social institutions, and you had different nightclubs. And then there was another area and you also had residential areas as well in that neighborhood. And then there was also a Paradise Valley, so that was like an entertainment district where they had the nightclubs and everything. So back in the day, you used to have Duke Ellington coming through, Ella Fitzgerald, a couple of other very prominent musicians within the African American community. But because of World War II and the blight of how everything shifted, early 1960s, the city decided it was urban plight. So they decided to bulldoze the whole area and create this mass gentrification, because you came in with the 75 and the Lafayette Park, where the people who were in those particular neighborhoods they didn't make that much money to be able to live there. So they were all displaced into public housing with the Jeffries, Brewster projects and all of that. But then you fast forward to now what we're looking at, where you see gentrification gentrification, a lot of downtown area, midtown area. But then last year, during a State of the City address, Mayor Duggan, he spoke on that issue of, a lot of people were saying, Detroit is only being revitalized downtown and midtown.
Right.
But Duggan spoke on his State of City address saying that he was going to go into past, Grand Boulevard to go into the different neighborhoods. So he had a few neighborhoods where he decided to have a $30 million redevelopment project. So that's the Livernois, McNichols area, 6 Mile area. If you're from Detroit. I said McNichols, but it's 6 Mile, really. But anyway, so area in Southwest Detroit was that Clark Park, near Clark Park, and also in West Village, and a few others that he was saying that there was going to be $30 million investments in. So which brings me to a place where 7 Mile in Livernois, Matt Hessler, he's doing some redevelopment in the Siegel building. Is right on the corner of Livernois and 7 Mile. And it kind of hits home for me because I grew up in that neighborhood. So I'm kind of like, okay, what's going on here? What are you trying to do? But it also gives a little bit of a sense of, okay, I'm open to what you're going to do because he actually lives in the area and he's able to understand, what that area needs for those people. Mm-hmm. And I really do feel like that it could be something where it could help the area because that avenue of fashion was up and thriving, and I remember that. So hopefully it's something that would bring more of a inclusive type of redevelopment versus excluding and complete gentrification in that area.
Right, but that's still remaining to be seen. Right?
Yeah, it is.
And we see that with a lot of development that's going on, especially around Midtown and downtown. I really think it's a issue of neighborhoods versus downtown. We see the gentrification happening in neighborhoods, and a lot of people shy away from the word gentrification, but we're gonna call a spade and say it's gentrification. A lot of people want to say right. A lot of people want to say it's just the upbringing of those neighborhoods. Well, really, I feel I've seen in a lot of places where neighborhoods are brought up and bettered, and there's more value added to neighborhoods, while simultaneously not displacing the people who have been there and who have historically built the city.
Right.
And that's not what we're seeing right now in Detroit.
No, not downtown and midtown areas. It's completely different.
It's totally different.
But it is encouraged. I've talked to some Black-owned business owners who do have businesses in downtown. It is encouraged to come down there. This is your city. Mm-hmm. Come down here. It's not just for white people. It's for Black people as well because this is your city. So come down there, participate in it is the message that has been sent from Black businesses.
I think that we will be down there this summer.
Oh, definitely, because I took part of the bad stuff, so I'm going to take part of the good stuff.
And I think you see that
down there.
Yeah, I think you see that seasonal migration too, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of Black people don't go downtown in the winter for several reasons. I mean, for one, you have to pay an exorbitant amount of money to park downtown if you're going to go down there, and then you're really only drawn out by an activity, whether it's a football game or a basketball game or a show at the Fox or somewhere else downtown. But historically, those are the things. Summertime is a lot different. We're down there in Shane Park. We're down there just chilling on Belle Isle. Like, we're down in the city because it's easier to get down there in the summertime, and you feel like you can hang out all day without being impeded by the weather.
Yeah.
So that's
we don't like cold weather.
I
know I don't.
I cannot.
That's the only reason why I haven't been down there. It's cold.
But throwing it to you, Tristan, I know you were looking particularly at certain neighborhoods, but what are some of the domino effects? Well, what are some of the things that are directly impacted by gentrification in areas where you have a lot of people who are being priced out of certain areas? What's the resulting cause of some of the things that happens as that takes place?
All right. Actually, a mutual friend of ours, Ricardo, we had a conversation and we were talking about the real estate and what happened during the recession. There were some issues with the costs of the houses, so people lost their houses. So with that, there were children that were actually in those households. So the children in those households, if they're no longer occupying those households, then that means that they're no longer in the school district, which means if they're no longer in the school districts, then those seats aren't being filled by the students that would have occupied in those houses. So therefore, that will make a lot of the schools actually condensed in size. Like you can't have 20 seats in the classroom and then have 3 students in there.
Right.
So that's why a lot of all the Detroit public schools actually started closing. So then they had to take those students that should have been in those school districts. So now they're being forced into the charter schools where they can actually put everybody all into one setting, as opposed to them not being able to fill those seats in their actual school districts.
So we talked a lot about Detroit, but gentrification really is an issue that impacts not only Detroit but a lot of urban cities around the U.S. You look at places like New Orleans post Katrina. That's been really impacted by gentrification. San Francisco. I think what we're seeing right now in Detroit is similar to what 1970s Brooklyn looked like. Brooklyn was really a city that was occupied by, look at some of our favorite rappers, who rap about Brooklyn all the time and how they grew up in impoverished areas and projects. Jay-Z always talks about growing up in Brooklyn, Nas, Biggie, all those guys. And now you can't walk down any street in Brooklyn and get a cup of coffee that's going to cost you less than $5. You know what I mean?
Right,
so,
yeah.
And you look at that, there was an author by the name of Peter Morowitz who wrote a book called, I think, The Death of a City. And in it, he talked about how places like Detroit and Brooklyn and Philadelphia and San Francisco and New Orleans are succumbing to this gentrification process. And one of the things he pointed out was the correlation between Detroit and Brooklyn. And Detroit really is looking like Brooklyn looked 30 to 40 years ago, where, all of these places are being bought up by investors and it's moving the people from their natural habitat, really. And it's forcing them to outskirts and it's forcing them to be displaced. And so, one of the things that I look at when people talk about gentrification is that there are a lot of good things that come from it. And I know a lot of people don't like to admit that, but, when an area becomes destabilized and crippled by so many things like the housing bubble or the leaving of manufacturing jobs, which obviously Detroit is a city that was built on manufacturing, how can it be built back up without gentrification in a sense, But I'll toss to you guys to try to offer some sort of pros and cons and some of the good things that are, happen because of or as a result of gentrification and the bad, which are a lot more obvious than the good factors.
I want to say that I noticed that Detroit, just going from my own experience, downtown Detroit is beautiful. I can't take that away. It's beautiful, and I enjoy being down there. I love the fact that it has changed and it has gotten better. But it's like, that money that you're putting into downtown, how is it going to affect the community? Like, how is it going to make our communities better? So that's my pro is it's beautiful, it's great, but it's like, okay, is it helping the community? And is it, pushing, those people that's been there for a long time out of that area? You can't, so it's like, make it better. It's okay to make it better, but it's like, don't get rid of the people that's been here for years.
Right.
So it's like, make it better and let us stay. Let us stay. Yeah, so it's like, let us stay. Let us enjoy each other. Let's unite. So make it better and unite at the end of the day. So that's my thing about gentrification.
Absolutely.
My area.
I agree with you on that because, I'm from Crane Street, so on the east side between Vernon and Charlevoix. And there's literally like 3 houses on my block. So y'all doing all this rebuilding, but y'all got a block with 3 houses.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like, okay, how do we get some of these benefits without actually displacing the people within these 3 houses on the block? Like, how do we actually get that built up to where, we can actually get a full neighborhood?
Right.
It's literally nothing but 3 houses in a liquor store.
Yeah. And I think part of the issue too is, when I say there's obvious pros to gentrification, I mean that, the natural course of things with gentrification is that you get people, higher earners, to come into the city. And those higher earners pay higher taxes. And those taxes, in essence, what you hope would happen is that they go to fund better schools and that they go to fund police departments and they go to fund social services to bring up the way of life for other people in the city who aren't directly impacted, because I feel like, again, we touched on this earlier, but it seems to be a downtown, midtown versus neighborhood issue with gentrification. And so what we really need to do is find ways to take what's happening downtown and implant that into our neighborhoods while, you know, like Tristan and Veronica both touched on, not displacing people who are already there, because that is like the primary con of gentrification, right? It's like when you price people out of areas, then what choices do they have?
Right.
You know? Yeah, that's something that I can say I've seen places where gentrification has taken over, where it has a pro, if you will.
But, right. I'm trying to be positive.
Right.
I'm trying to be positive. It's hard.
Right.
It's hard,
A pro in a way, because my K through 8 Burton International, the original building is right in the center of like Cass and Peterborough. And I remember going to school, like, we sat outside and it's a prostitute talking about, y'all don't be like me, you know, like, y'all stay in school, you know, but we were in that with people who were on drugs, people who were homeless, you know, prostitutes and everything. We were right in the heart of that. And to go back there, like, I took a bike ride this summer over there, and it was just astonishing to see how much of a difference it is just right there in that Cass Peterborough area, which was desolate for years. You know, you have Masonic Temple that they'll have things, you know, events going on, but the area around it, it's like, you know, you need to hold your purse because you don't know.
Right.
But even just bars and local bars and everything that's around that area, to see people frequent there is like, it's kind of mind blowing, because just to see the difference of then and now, and how gentrification has uplifted that whole area. I'm not sure exactly, as far as like individuals who lived in that area, how they were displaced or if they were displaced, because you still have certain shelters and certain community organization buildings in that area still a part of the neighborhood. So I can say, and just in that, I've seen how gentrification has changed the neighborhood. And I'm sure it's for the better, because you would want an area like that, which is a few blocks away from a major university like Wayne State, to, you know, be up and thriving, to bring more of those people who will invest into the actual community or into Detroit, because that's where you're living for 4, 8, 12, how many ever years you're there.
Right.
So kind of a pro, sort of, but I'm not 100%. I mean, that jury is still out. Even just going back to the 7 Mile Livernois, the jury is still out. That's something I think we'll have to wait to see. But I do feel like, as you know, the Black community needs to participate.
Right. And I think that's important too. And you know, as much as I say pro, that's me being optimistic, right? Because I understand that you know, gentrification really hasn't been friendly to anyone who isn't native to the area where gentrification is taking place. You know, you mentioned earlier Black Bottom, and like there's so many people who are content with the way that their neighborhoods are, and their neighborhoods that aren't necessarily bad neighborhoods. They aren't the best neighborhoods, but they aren't bad neighborhoods, and you learn to cope and thrive and survive in whatever environment you're in when you're a Detroit native. You know, and that's not unlike so many other big cities around, big urban cities. It's like, you know, if an outsider comes in, they might see your street or your neighborhood as dangerous, where to you it's like,
This is
Right.
what it is.
And you know, and so it's easy to see the cons. It's people get displaced. You know, if an investor buys into a large apartment complex or a piece of property and ups the rent, then that in itself is gentrification, because it's not allowing the people there who make a nominal income to maintain their standard of living, you know, while things are happening and growing around them.
Right, which is not fair, because it's not like, you know, rent goes up, but our income does not go up.
Exactly.
So how fair is that? Like, you know, I understand gentrification is cool and all, but it's like our incomes don't go up, and it's like, this is where, you know, where we're at. These are, you know, like they say, a lot of people say, oh, it's hard to get jobs, whatever. Yeah, it's easy, but I think it's easy to get jobs, but it's not enough for the economy.
It's easier to get a job, but
it's like
underemployed.
Right.
Thing,
it's like, it's all about how much do you get paid, though. Like, you know, so I feel like we need to kind of like have more resources as far as education wise, as far as educating ourselves.
Absolutely.
And, you know, helping educate each other. And I feel like I've noticed that the community has been playing a big role in educating each other as far as, you know, activities. There's not as many activities out there for kids as it used to be back in the day.
Not even.
So now I feel like, you know, it comes from us. Like, we have to, you know, incorporate those activities for our children now, because we like, it's not there anymore. So we, as a community, have to come in and produce those things. So we can't depend on everybody else to do those things.
So, Veronica, continuing along those lines, what are some things that you would suggest as to how we can sort of thrive while the inevitable of gentrification is happening around us in our communities? What would you suggest?
I feel like we should get together and use our resources, that we do have, like, instead of trying to keep them to ourselves, like Aaron touched on in the last episode. Share resources and come together and invest in your own business, and give back to the community.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because like you said, giving back to the community and everything. Oftentimes, Black dollars is criticized by putting money into things like materialistic things that you buy or items. But why not take that same money and redirect it into a Black business? Now I've seen on social media where you do have more databases where you have somebody may have like a website where you can go to and you can find out the different Black businesses online or in your area. So I feel like that's something that we can, the Black community within urban cities, like Detroit, where we can kind of change it a little bit and bring it back around to keep that dollar within the Black community as much as possible. Probably the 100 times, and then it goes out the Black community. Right. But I feel like that's a way we can kind of, I don't know if combat is the right word, or to participate in the gentrification process that is, like you said, inevitable, but to where we can still stay afloat as a community and not get pushed out or displaced.
Yep, invest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, invest in your community. Invest in your community.
All right. And I think a good way in regards to like the youth and what it is that they may want to do, we can actually try to just kind of ask them, okay, so what is it that you're interested in? Like what after school programs would you like to implement? Because us as adults, we already have this mindset of what we want our children to do versus actually asking them, okay, what do you want?
That's true.
That is true.
So, like asking them, okay, so do you want to like do some type of preliminary engineering stuff, for the people that may want to do that, or we already have enough sports stuff. I mean, the Pal League still no. They still got I'm old. Pal, East Side Raiders, all that. So a long time ago. But so just asking them, what is it that you would like to do? Because like everybody has a dream or a goal that they would like to achieve once they get older. So why not actually have like different programs that they would like to implement or that they would like to see to kind of help them to get to that point?
Right. And that's why I appreciate even just like our high school DSA.
Yes,
it was an outlet for students who had some type of talent within the arts to actually explore that talent and opportunities to move further within that particular art that you were pursuing. So you do have there's a few other schools who do specialize in like tech science, but I agree we do need more of like listening, more of a open communication and listening to each other.
I think one of the most important things in sort of, like you say, combating might not be the best word, but finding a way to thrive in this society where gentrification is happening all around us in our urban setting is to really hold our elected officials and city leaders responsible for the decisions that they make. One of the big things is that if a proposal comes to the city council to rezone a district or rezone an area, I think we can set minimum standards or expect our politicians to set minimum standards for job creation, hiring within the city, setting boundaries about pay for these workers that are going to be employed by these companies that are coming into our cities and towns and things like that and taking over. And I think, every zone is different, obviously, and downtown and midtown Detroit is sexy. Just like when you look at Atlanta, it's sexy to these investors because that's where the money is. Just like if you look at a city like Atlanta, downtown Atlanta is where the booming metro is. And you got some suburbs to the north of the city. And Philadelphia and New Orleans and these places where tourism is booming. These are all of the places that they're trying to build up. And like I said, we just have to hold our politicians accountable and say, don't forget about us.
Yeah.
Because you're supposed to represent us.
Right.
You know.
So be for the people.
Right.
Yeah.
Before the people. And that's what we just have to continue to push. But, even one thing that I do, because you guys talked about recycling the black dollar within the community, I make it a point to support black businesses of friends that I know. Friends that I know. I'm actually rocking a sweatshirt right now from my friend who's in Atlanta based. They run a podcast, they do a blog, they make clothes. And this company is called Black Republic. And that's a powerful name in and of itself. But so you guys can shout out and support them and find them on Instagram if you just search Black Republic. It's a company that I support. They always do great things for the community. They just got finished doing a whole Black Panther party where they rented out a theater and did
Black
that.
Panther
Support the whole
party.
people.
That's sweet.
Right.
It was really cool.
And I wasn't
But they do a lot of things like that. Another particular black business that I support is KORY Woods through Updated Media Group, and he runs a photography videography company. One of the best photographers in Detroit, not just Detroit, but the state of Michigan, hands down.
Shout out to KORY.
Yeah, he's a guy. He's been doing it now for about a decade, but he's just a great businessman, entrepreneur. Works with other black businesses in the city, and he has a similar mindset as me, where he's always looking to support other black businesses. And Tristan, you touched on it earlier. Your experience with a Black Business Expo earlier this week.
Absolutely. I mean, it was pretty much a good opportunity to just see like all those black businesses in one spot, to be able to commune with them, and then to just be able to see the patrons go in and see how excited they were to actually go ahead and shop and really be happy and excited to, I get a chance to support somebody who looks like me, you know?
Yeah.
So I thought that in itself, absolutely, I thought that was a very fulfilling adventure, in itself. Shout out to Enjoy Detroit. What up, man?
Right. Let them know. Well, I think that's really a positive start. A trend that can continue, and hopefully get out of a trend and just be a way of life. That's what we just do, and we can grow together. Because I know we talked about just black businesses, but just being able to grow together is also a way. I feel like will be a good way to participate in the gentrification.
I would like to put out a call to action to everybody. Find a business that's been in your community for a decade or for half a decade, and just go patronize them. Go spend some dollars there. Let them know that you support them. Let them know that despite what's going on around them and around you, that they're a value, they're an asset to the community, and you're gonna make sure that they don't go anywhere anytime soon.
Right.
I think that's important.
Absolutely.
Exposure is what it is. And I don't know if you're okay to do this. If you want to, just add in the comments of a black business within a Metro Detroit area, or even if it's out of state, if they have an online store, just drop it in the comments. And so everybody we can start that, some type of database or, to start from.
Like I said, the company that I'm supporting now is Atlanta based. And, I have no problem. I shop with them online. I actually met a couple of the people who are involved with the project, and they're just good people who I enjoy supporting. So definitely drop a comment below to let us know who those black businesses are, or the businesses within your urban community, not necessarily black businesses, but businesses that you patronize in your community that that sort of go against the grain of gentrification.
Yeah.
So, that sort of wraps up what we wanted to discuss in this episode. We talked about some of the pros and cons of gentrification. We talked about sort of how to preserve your neighborhoods and your urban communities through recycling black dollars within your cities. And, we just talked about how important it is to really empower the people around you to continue to grow and build your community, especially through the youth. I think that's one of the important things. So
very important.
Send it over to Veronica to close this out for the second episode.
Right, you guys, remember, you're only as powerful as you think you are. Leave your comments below on what you think about tonight's episode, and we'll see you guys next Sunday.
We've been the Grit. We're out.
Bye.
Bye.
2 and 2.
Please. You forgot to push that down.
Oh, I switched it up a little bit.
I like that.